What If Rimuru x MHA, The Hero Copycat Part 2 by Rimuru Edward 6. This is a crossover between that time I got reincarnated as a slime and My Hero Academia. This fanfic will have All For One as the main villain and will follow the perspective of Rimuru. Chapter 5 Izuku Pav. The morning air was crisp as I walked toward school, my notebook tucked securely under my arm. My mind kept drifting back to yesterday's events, the villains, All Might, and, of course, Rimuru's strange confidence in the face of danger. "Hey, Izuku," came a familiar voice behind me. I turned to see Rimuru catching up, her silver hair shining in the sunlight like always. She looked as calm and collected as ever, as if nothing could faze her. "Good morning, Rimuru," I said, trying to keep the excitement out of my voice. I still couldn't believe how cool she'd been yesterday. "You're walking to school today?" She nodded, falling into step beside me. "Yeah. Figured I'd get some fresh air." I smiled nervously, not sure what to say. Ever since yesterday, I'd been curious about how she'd managed to stay so calm. I wanted to ask her about it, but I also didn't want to sound weird, or worse, nosy. "So," she said, glancing at me, "you seemed pretty excited meeting All Might yesterday." "Excited?" I blurted, my voice shooting up an octave. Of course I was excited. He's All Might, the #1 hero, the symbol of peace. The greatest hero of all time. Meeting him it was a dream come true. Rimuru chuckled softly. "Yeah, I could tell. You almost passed out." I blushed, rubbing the back of my neck. "I didn't almost pass out." "You did," she teased, a small smirk playing on her lips. I groaned, but I couldn't help smiling a little. Rimuru always had a way of making me feel at ease, even when I was embarrassing myself. As we walked, I glanced at her out of the corner of my eye. There was something different about her lately, though I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Maybe it was the way she'd handled herself yesterday, or the way she always seemed to know exactly what to do. "Hey, Rimuru," I said hesitantly. "Yeah? How do you stay so calm in situations like yesterday? I mean, those villains were right there, and you didn't even flinch." She shrugged, her expression unreadable. "Guess I've just learned to keep my cool. Panicking doesn't help anyone, right?" "I guess," I said, frowning slightly. "But it's not just that. You always seem to know what to do, like you've practiced or something." Rimuru glanced at me, her eyes sharp for a brief moment before softening. "Let's just say I've had my fair share of tough situations. You pick things up along the way." I wanted to ask more, but the way she said it made me think she didn't want to talk about it. "Anyway," she said, changing the subject, "have you thought any more about what I said? About your quirk?" My heart skipped a beat. Ever since Rimuru had told me I might actually have a quirk, I hadn't been able to stop thinking about it. The idea that my ability to analyze and strategize could be something more than just a talent. It felt like a dream I didn't dare believe in. "Yeah," I admitted, "but I still don't know how to use it. I mean, if it's really a quirk, how do I even train it?" Rimuru smirked. "That's the fun part. You figure it out." "Easy for you to say," I muttered, though I couldn't help smiling. As we approached the school gates, I felt a little more confident than I had the day before. Rimuru always had a way of making me see things differently, even if I didn't fully understand her. Maybe one day, I'd figure out her secrets. But for now, I was just glad to have her as a friend. The morning bell rang as Rimuru and I stepped into the classroom. As always, the noise was almost overwhelming, students chattering, calling out to friends, and the occasional bang from someone dropping their books. It was chaotic, but I'd grown used to it. "Yo, Midoriya!" shouted Hitoshi Sato, a tall boy with spiky blonde hair who always seemed full of energy. "Did you hear? Katsuki says he's going to show off some new explosion move in gym class today." I flinched at the mention of Katsuki. No, I didn't hear that." "Of course you didn't," came the sharp voice of Mina Ishido, who slid into her seat with a mischievous grin. "Bakugo doesn't exactly keep you in the loop, does he?" Her pink skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight streaming through the windows, and she leaned closer with a conspiratorial smirk. "Don't worry, Izuku. If he blows himself up, I'll make sure to get a picture for you." I smiled nervously, not sure how to respond. Rimuru, meanwhile, slid into her seat beside me with her usual calm demeanor, completely unfazed by the chatter around her. "Hey, Rimuru," called out Denki Kaminari from across the room. "Are you gonna ace the math test again? Give the rest of us a chance, will you?" Rimuru raised an eyebrow. Maybe if you spent more time studying and less time trying to figure out how to charge your phone with your quirk, you'd have a shot. The class erupted into laughter as Denki rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Fair enough. As class began, I did my best to focus on the lessons, though it was hard with Katsuki glaring daggers at me every time I glanced in his direction. Rimuru, on the other hand, seemed completely focused, jotting down notes with her usual efficiency. When the lunch bell finally rang, I felt a wave of relief. The cafeteria was loud and crowded, but it was better than enduring Katsuki's constant scowls. I grabbed a tray of curry and rice and made my way to the table where Rimuru was already sitting. She was surrounded by a mix of students, each with their quirks and personalities on full display. "Hey, Midoriya," Eijiro Kirishima waved me over, his shark-like teeth flashing in a friendly grin. "Come sit with us. We're talking about hero training." I hesitated for a moment but sat down. Kirishima always had a way of making everyone feel welcome, and the excitement in his voice was contagious. "So," Mina said, leaning forward, "if you could pick one pro hero to train you, who would it be? And no cheating by saying All Might." Kirishima laughed. "Yeah, Midoriya, we all know that'd be your first pick." My face turned bright red. Well, I mean, All Might's amazing, but obviously Midnight," Denki interrupted with a dreamy expression. "She's the coolest." "Midnight?" Momo Yaoyorozu, sitting across from him, raised an eyebrow. "Her skill set wouldn't be the best match for your quirk, Denki. You should aim for someone with more experience in electricity-based combat." Denki blinked, his face falling. "Oh, right. What about you, Rimuru?" Mina asked, turning to her. "If you could train under anyone, who would it be?" Rimuru paused, her fork hovering over her plate. "That's a tough one," she said thoughtfully. "I'd probably pick someone who's good at adapting to different situations. Someone versatile, like Hawks or Edgeshot. The kind of hero who can handle anything thrown their way." Her answer earned a few nods of approval, though I noticed a glint of something unreadable in her eyes. "What about you, Midoriya?" Kirishima asked again. I hesitated, clutching my fork tightly. I guess, someone who could help me figure out what I'm good at." "Someone patient," Mina smiled. "Oh, that's so sweet." As the conversation continued, I couldn't help glancing at Rimuru. She was relaxed, contributing to the discussion like it was no big deal, but there was always an air of mystery around her. I still didn't know how she stayed so calm and confident all the time. By the time lunch ended, I felt a little more at ease. Talking with my classmates had a way of making everything feel normal, even if just for a little while. "Ready for the afternoon classes?" Rimuru asked as we walked back to the classroom. I nodded, clutching my notebook. "Yeah, let's do this." She smirked, her usual calm confidence shining through. "That's the spirit." As the afternoon sun beat down on us, Rimuru and I walked together toward the school gates. The day had been surprisingly calm after yesterday's events, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lingering just below the surface, something Rimuru wasn't telling me. "Hey, Rimuru," I began, glancing at her. "Are you heading straight home today?" She shook her head. "No, I've got something to take care of." I frowned, curious but hesitant to pry. "Do you need any help?" She stopped and turned to me, her expression as calm and unreadable as ever. "Nah, I've got it covered. But I need to make a call, so go ahead. I'll catch up with you later." "Oh, okay," I said, a little disappointed. "See you tomorrow, then." As I walked off, I couldn't help but glance back. Rimuru had already pulled out her phone, her face unusually serious. Chapter 6 Hawks Paw. The faint hum of the city buzzed in the background as I perched on the edge of a rooftop, scanning the streets below. Patrol duty wasn't always glamorous, but it was necessary. Sometimes, just being visible was enough to keep things under control. Then my earpiece buzzed. "Copycat here," said an unfamiliar voice, calm and clipped. "There are 15 lackeys of all for one approximately 3 kilometers south of your current location. They're planning something that will endanger civilians. Please, I can't make it in time myself." I stiffened, my instincts kicking in. "Copycat?" I repeated. "Never worked with you before. How do I know this isn't a prank?" There was a brief pause, then the voice came back, sharper this time. "Check for yourself if you don't believe me, but if you wait too long, innocent lives could be at risk. Do you really want to take that chance, Hawks?" Her tone carried a confidence that caught me off guard. Whoever this was, she wasn't messing around. "All right," I said, spreading my wings. "I'll check it out." But if this is some kind of joke, it's not, she interrupted. Good luck. The line went dead before I could say anything else. I frowned, scanning the area to the south. I didn't know who this copycat was, but if what she said was true, I didn't have time to waste. 15 lackeys, huh? I muttered to myself as I took off into the air. Guess I'll find out soon enough. The wind whipped past me as I soared toward the coordinates she'd hinted at, my mind racing. If All for One's people really were here, this was bigger than I'd expected. And if this copycat was right, I might have just found an ally worth keeping an eye on. The wind rushed past me as I closed in on the coordinates copycat had mentioned. I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in my chest since her call. I didn't know who this person was or how they'd gotten my private line, but if they were right about All for One's lackeys, this was a situation I couldn't ignore. All right, I muttered, tapping my earpiece as I flew. Copycat, you still there? Yes, her voice came through, calm and steady. What do you need? What's the layout of the area? I asked, scanning the streets below for any signs of trouble. If you've got this much information, I'm guessing you know the terrain. There's an abandoned warehouse at the location, she replied without missing a beat. 3 floors, but most of the activity is happening on the second. There's a loading dock on the west side and an emergency exit on the east. They're likely using the dock for moving supplies. I whistled low. You've done your homework. What about their numbers? Are we really looking at 15? Confirmed, she said firmly. Most are standard lackeys, but 2 of them have quirks you'll need to watch out for. I adjusted my flight path, dipping lower as I approached the warehouse. Quirks? Huh? What am I up against? One of them has a strength enhancement quirk, but it's short-lived. Think bursts of power for about 30 seconds. The other can manipulate metal objects within a 10-meter radius, but only if they're already loose. Got it, I said, my wings flaring as I landed on a nearby rooftop. And their goal? What are they moving? Explosives, she said flatly, making my stomach drop. Their plan is to plant them around a nearby apartment complex. If they succeed, we're looking at massive civilian casualties. Explosives? I hissed, my feathers bristling. Why the hell would they target an apartment complex? Distraction, she explained. All for One's agents thrive on chaos. While the heroes are tied up dealing with this, they'll be working on something bigger elsewhere. Her tone was so calm and analytical, it almost unnerved me. You sound awfully certain about this, I said. How do you know so much? That's classified, she replied without hesitation. Focus on the mission, Hawks. I clicked my tongue, annoyed but unable to argue. Whoever this copycat was, she clearly knew what she was doing. I'm going in, I said, leaping off the roof and gliding toward the warehouse. Keep feeding me intel. Understood, she replied. The warehouse was just as she'd described, old, grimy, and eerily quiet. I perched on a broken window frame, scanning the interior. Sure enough, I spotted several goons unloading crates from a truck near the loading dock. Copycat, I whispered, I count 7 near the west side. Where are the rest? 3 on the second floor near the center staircase, she said. 2 patrolling the east exit, and 3 more moving crates to a secondary vehicle on the north side. I smirked. You've got eyes everywhere, don't you? Just focus, she said dryly. With her guidance, I moved silently through the building, using my feathers to disable the lackeys one by one. The first group went down easily, their movements too predictable to pose a real challenge. Second floor next, I whispered as I scaled the stairs. Any surprises waiting for me? 2 of the quirked individuals are up there, she warned. Metal manipulation and strength enhancement. They're keeping an eye on the explosives. Perfect, I muttered. As I reached the landing, I spotted them immediately. The strength-enhanced thug stood near a pile of crates, while the other was fiddling with a collection of wires and timers. Copycat, I murmured. Any advice on how to handle these 2? Take out the metal manipulator first, she said. If they activate their quirk, they'll turn the environment against you. Strength enhancement will try to rush you, so keep your distance and wear them out. Got it, I said, a grin spreading across my face. Thanks for the play-by-play. With a flick of my wrist, I sent 2 feathers toward the metal manipulator, disarming them before they could react. The thugs shouted in surprise, drawing the attention of their partner, who charged at me with a roar. Strength guy's coming in hot, I muttered. Keep moving, Copycat instructed. Don't let him get close. I darted to the side, my wings carrying me out of reach as the thugs swung wildly. Following her advice, I kept my distance, using my feathers to chip away at him until his quirk's time limit ran out. When the last lackey hit the ground, I exhaled, my feathers returning to me. All clear, I said into the earpiece. Explosives are secure. You were right. This could have been a disaster. Good work, she replied. Authorities are en route to handle cleanup. You should clear out before they arrive. I frowned. What about you? You did half the work here. I don't need credit, she said simply. I just need to make sure people stay safe. Her voice was calm, but there was something in it that caught me off guard, a quiet determination that spoke of experience far beyond her years. Copycat, I said as I made my way out of the warehouse, I don't know who you are, but I owe you one. If you ever need backup, call me. There was a brief pause before she answered. Thanks, Hawks. I'll keep that in mind. And just like that, the line went dead. After the mission was wrapped up and the authorities took over, I found myself perched on a rooftop, staring out over the city. The encounter with Copycat was still fresh in my mind. Whoever she was, she'd been indispensable, feeding me critical intel in real time, guiding my every move like a pro. But it was more than that. She wasn't just efficient, she was confident, deliberate, and far too experienced for someone I'd never even heard of. And that bugged me. I tapped the communicator in my earpiece, connecting to my usual channels. This is Hawks. I need some information on a pro hero called Copycat. Can you dig up whatever you can find? The familiar voice on the other end crackled to life. Copycat? Hang on, pulling it up now. I leaned back against the rooftop ledge, the night air cool against my face. Something about her had stuck with me, the way she spoke, the precision of her intel, the way she seemed to know exactly what to do. All right, I've got something, the voice said, pulling me out of my thoughts. Copycat is a registered pro hero, but... that's odd. What's odd? I asked, straightening up. Most of her file is classified, the voice admitted. But here's what I can access. Copycat operates primarily in covert missions. Strength-wise, she's ranked among the top tier, comparable to Hawks and Edgeshot in terms of tactical skill and adaptability. Comparable to me, huh? I said, raising an eyebrow. That's high praise for someone I've never met in person. There's more, the voice continued. Her quirk is officially listed as Analytical Copycat. It allows her to analyze and copy quirks, storing them for future use. The only limitation mentioned is that she can only use one quirk at a time and must wait 5 seconds between switches. I frowned. That part, at least, lined up with what she'd told me herself. What about her record? Any notable missions? That's the thing, the voice replied. Most of her operations are marked as classified. But there are vague mentions of her involvement in dismantling several high-level villain operations, some of them tied to All for One. The mention of All for One made my stomach twist. Tied to All for One? How directly? Details are blacked out, but the implication is that she's been gathering intel on his network for a while. She's got a reputation for staying under the radar, but the people who know about her seem to trust her implicitly. I let out a low whistle. A secret hero who specializes in taking down All for One's goons, and I'm just hearing about her now? Guess I need to update my network. Anything else you need? Yeah, I said, my tone serious. Any personal details? Real name, background, anything that isn't redacted? The voice hesitated. Sorry, Hawks, that's all locked up tight. Whoever Copycat is, someone high up doesn't want her identity getting out. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Figures. All right, thanks for the info. Let me know if anything else turns up. Will do. Be careful, Hawks. If she's tied to All for One's operations, she could be in the middle of something big. Yeah, I muttered as the line went dead. Something tells me she already is. I stood there for a moment, staring out at the city lights below. Copycat wasn't just a hero, she was a mystery. And if she really had been tracking All for One's lackeys, then her presence in my mission today wasn't a coincidence. Who are you, Copycat? And what aren't you telling me? With a deep breath, I spread my wings and took off into the night, the questions about her still buzzing in my mind.